Hi, and welcome to another episode of eCommerce One. Today's guest, Sacha Grelick, copywriter-in-chief at Sacha Grelick Copywriting. How are you doing, Sacha?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, and
Great.
yourself?
Yeah, I am really good, really good. It's the first episode I've done for a little while, so really looking forward to getting stuck in. I know we've had to postpone a couple of episodes recently because of the dreaded COVID, unfortunately, kicked in at my end a few weeks ago. So I'm back on it now, so looking forward to getting stuck in. So
Sounds good.
I think let's get into it. So how did you get into this crazy world of entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. Well, it kind of all started after I was expecting my second kid and I wanted to start my own business. So I had this crazy idea of building an Etsy style website for Israeli artists. And honestly, like it was a huge failure in terms of like the financial aspects, but it was a huge success because what it kind of taught me was that I was amazing at telling stories and telling the artist stories and writing descriptions about all their beautiful products. And
Yeah.
at the time I was really down on myself, like I'd wasted all this money and wasted all this time. But then someone said to me, she's like, Sacha, you know, you're a really amazing writer. So I was like, oh, okay. And then just kind of set up an Upwork profile, and then I grew from there and now have sort of my own boutique agency and work primarily with Amazon sellers and e-commerce store owners. Yeah.
That's a great story, isn't it? I think started out doing one thing and you learn a lot on the way, I think, is the short
Definitely.
version. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could write a book about the failures, if you want to call them failures, but obviously they're, some amazing learnings along the way that,
Right.
and you find your strength, don't you? I think that really resonate with the listeners. I think probably the sooner you find the things that you're good at and understand the things that you're great at and the things you enjoy, and maybe the things that you're maybe not so enthused about, and maybe get other people to help you with those. I think the sooner you sort of can spend time in your flow,
Right.
as people call it. Yeah, it's a fantastic. So copywriting, then I think that's something that's definitely not in my flow. If I'm honest, I say that I'm okay, but I might have some a lot smarter people that help me with it. I think with
Yeah.
business.
No, it's good. You got to know your strengths. So I'm sure you're
That's
brilliant
it.
at other things.
That's it. So obviously e-commerce copywriting, e-commerce stores listening, there's a lot of things we can dive into, but I think let's talk about storytelling and brand storytelling.
Yeah.
I think, the stores that are listening in, that, tell us about that and what your thoughts are on brand storytelling.
So this is what I love. And the fact that you've said the word storytelling is perfect, because I think what a lot of people get caught up on is a brand story. And a story is something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's very closed-ended. And if you just have a static kind of brand story, your customer is more of like a viewer as opposed to a participant or part of your tribe.
Yeah.
So what I really think is brand storytelling is projecting like a view of the world, or like a set of values that people can believe in, something that's like bigger than the actual like products that you're selling. And it's really just about brand storytelling is creating like an experience for customers. So it's in everything that you do. It's going to be in your website or emails that you send out or the packaging that you create. Everything you do is going to tell a story. And I think that's one of like the things that makes Apple stand out, is that they don't have a specific brand story. Okay, we all know about Steve Jobs and the things he said, but really Apple's story is this immersive experience they create with everything that they do. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what I believe brand storytelling is. It's something that's happening all the time. Yeah.
So it's organic, it's happening, it's everything within your organization, every touch point, is sort of contributing to that, that business. So it's almost like when I think about, we're saying about our brand, from the moment maybe you walk into your physical store, or the moment you hit that website, in our case more so, and every touch point from then onwards is sort of part of that brand. But then brand storytelling will be more so, that in connection with sort of, maybe, it's sort of modern day brand, but what people will say about you. Yeah,
exactly. It's like keeping that consistent message, that, so it's always recognizable and people will always, know who you are when you put stuff out, because they're like, oh, I know that brand voice, or I know that personality, or you just enjoy buying their products.
Yeah. So the guys that are listening in thinking, great, that all sounds quite straightforward, but how are our listeners, and what would you say about people that try and incorporate brand storytelling into their business? Give us some sort of actual ideas of how you can implement
ideas
that.
of how you can do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always just think that you need to really start off by creating like a brand promise. Like, what is this big overarching purpose or promise that you want people to kind of believe in? That's one side of things. So just, to give an example, like, let's say you sell some kind of mineral makeup that's like really natural. So obviously the product you're selling is for people that, want to like sort of go away from chemical based products and all that kind of stuff. But really, you can go deeper than that and think about what's this overall promise that you want to make. And maybe it's that mineral makeup is better for your skin, and it's actually some kind of like beauty treatment for your skin that not only makes you look beautiful, but also, imbues your skin with like good stuff. I'm just making this up, like as we go along. But I'm just saying that it's really about going deeper. But then on the other side of creating a narrative is really listening to what customers want. So like asking yourself, like, what role does my brand play in the customer's life? So like there's actually like a sort of urban legend about Pampers versus Huggies. Okay, we're going down the nappy route here. Yeah. But basically they both sell exactly the same product. They're both selling nappies or diapers for our American listeners. Yeah. And they were going head to head, with trying to capture more of the market. And Pampers at one point, I think, in their campaigns was going on about how theirs keeps your baby dry, and they kept going on about these features. But then eventually they spoke to parents and they asked them, what do you want? What is it you want from us? And what parents really wanted was for a brand to help them through all those different milestones and help them with sleep training and help them with what to feed your baby and when to feed them. And if you go on Pampers website now, you'll actually see that they have way more on there than just the nappies that they're selling. They've got all these different apps and quizzes and, helpful sleep trainings and stuff like that. And apparently they actually have more market share than Huggies, which is really interesting because Huggies still kind of focuses on just the actual products. Whereas I think what Pampers managed to do was create this sort of story and this narrative for people to fall in love with. And that's what customers wanted.
Yeah, I think that's so going to resonate with our listeners. Obviously, it's not just, right, we're just buying a SKU, a product, it's a, I don't know a description for a nappy, but I'll try. But, ultimately, a medium nappy, it doesn't sound that great. But if you're going onto the site and it's explaining things that really resonate with you, as a mother or a father, obviously, when you're going through the different, from when the baby's born all the way through to when it's out of nappies, and obviously the different types of nappies, educating them through, from when it's a real young newborn all the way through to a toddler. To then, going off to school and, soon after that, maybe.
Right.
I'm sure, there's a lot of education or pieces. Clearly, there'll be a lot of pillar and clusters that you can discuss and various
I mean, just like a completely different brand example, if you look at a brand like Alo Yoga, they're like one of the biggest yoga brands in the world right now. And what they did was really kind of create a narrative for people to believe in. So they have their studio and they have their yoga training. They don't just sell, they're not just another brand selling leggings. They really and they've got tons of brand ambassadors and yoga teachers online that really tell the story as well, and that people love it because they want to be part of that tribe. And I think that's something that people it's definitely, you have to do a lot of in-depth like strategy on positioning and all that kind of stuff, and it's not something that's going to come together overnight. It's going to be like a process.
So maybe let's dive into that then. So we're sort of incorporating storytelling, but how can a business sort of really incorporate that sort of personalization, really make it personal for their audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, personalization is something that is becoming much more popular, I think, on like different Shopify websites, and there's a lot of like technology that people can use to really personalize the experience and find out what customers want. So, for instance, quizzes that come up on websites to find out exactly what you're looking for, or even like, different, like what a lot of brands do is you go on their website, you start shopping, and then you have a pop-up, oh, hey, take 10% off. And you're like, I don't want 10% off yet. I didn't even look at your website. I don't know what I want yet. Like, but if brands really started more listening to the customer, and then personalizing those emails that you send out to them, you're going to find that you're going to connect so much better and really understand what customers want. Another example was that I saw was really good example was I was shopping on Marks and Spencer's recently because they shipped to Israel. And every time I added something to cart, another cute message, like another pop-up came up and it said, Sacha, we love your style. So it was like so cool because they were like making it very personalized, that as if I'd made like a really good choice. And I think that a lot of brands can incorporate that very easily into their, you know, marketing. Like on their websites, you just need like Sleek Note or one of these tools that creates pop-ups. And then you can create these really nice messages. Well, let's say somebody added like clothing to cart and they added a sweater. Imagine if the brand then said, oh, do you need a pair of pants to match that? Or, you know, what event are you going to? Like, what are you looking for? So those type of things can really, you know, help brands connect better with their customers.
Yeah, I think gone are the days where you sort of go to the site and bang, 5%, 10%.
Right.
You know, it's just so sort of crude, isn't it? Yeah, of course, everybody likes a bit of cheeky discount, and we can figure that out, I'm sure. And there's a right time for it, but I think, yeah, definitely the smarter brands, you know, like you talked there about some sort of clothing type brands, you know, there's obviously a lot of potential to cross-sell, upsell, you know, that occasion, talk about that. What's the occasion? You know, there's a dress for any occasion, but they're very, very different dresses, aren't they? Depending on whether you're going out for a party night out or a, you know, a work type thing, or, you know, that personalized piece, asking the right questions at the right time. Obviously, a lot of different technology there. You mentioned Sleek Note. I'm not familiar with that, actually. Is that something you recommend?
I've just looked into that recently, and they seem to have some really cool possibilities of like customizing these pop-ups and messages that you send on the site, like as people are browsing. I'm not really a techie person, but I just thought it was really cool. So I mean, I always like imagine, just talking about the personalization, like imagine if you walked into a shop and you were like accosted by the sales assistant, like, here, we have sales, come to the sales.
It's 10% off. It's like, whoa.
But really in real life, when you go into a shop, they usually let you browse for a little bit. And then the sales assistant comes up to me and says, oh, can I help you with something? So I think that we really need to sort of humanize our brand more and think of it in like a real way, as if it's a shop, but it's happening virtually, you know, but you can still have those personal touches.
Yeah, no, that's great. So obviously I'm looking at your sort of profile. You've been working with Amazon and Amazon product owners and obviously selling products on Amazon. And I think that's something that we get quite a lot of questions about at our agency. You know, we specialize more so in SEO on the websites and not on Amazon. But talk to me about product descriptions and, you know, how can a business use sort of copy? You know, we're talking about copy, and let's jump over to Amazon a little bit. But,
Amazon has definitely been my like sort of specialty over the last 5 years. Well, the way brands can really stand out is by doing a lot of, I'd say, work before you start writing, before you get your listing up. You need to really have a strategy as to how you want to position yourself in the market. What kind of personality do you want to have? Do you want to be, you know, there's the 12 archetypes in marketing, where it's like you have the hero brand, the explorer. Are you more rugged, or are you more of a tranquil, calming, caring brand? You know, there's different ways to really position yourself. And obviously the visual identity is super important as well. But in terms of actual product descriptions, so I always like to understand, you know, what a brand's tone of voice is. Do they want to be funny? Do they want to be entertaining? Or do they want to be, you know, just more formal and educational type of products? And it really depends. And I think it's super interesting because you can have two products that are essentially selling the exact same thing. For instance, like with supplements, you know, you have a company that's very formal, very scientific, because that's the type of persona they want to, you know, have online. Whereas there's another supplements company I've seen online that's called the Happy Hippie, and they're going for the more earthy, organic, crunchy community. And so obviously it's like they're essentially selling the exact same thing, but yet they're going after two completely different audiences. So I think if you do that work, you're going to have, you know, first, you're going to have so much more success because you're speaking to a specific audience. You're going to resonate with them, and your tribe is going to want to buy from you because they kind of see themselves in your brand.
So not sort of just diving in and, oh, we're selling, you know, I quite often have my Prince mug with me on most episodes. It's quite apt, actually, because the Super Bowl was on yesterday, and the best ever halftime Super Bowl performance was Prince many years ago, for those that don't know. So just trying to think then. So I think, quite often, I think a lot of companies are guilty of, oh, we've got our mug, we've got our Prince mug, right? So this Prince mug, Obviously that brand element, that brand angle, what, you know, that edginess to the brand or not, you know, is the first piece of work you need to look at, you know,
yeah,
and
100%.
the sort of style. So what would you say about Amazon product descriptions versus sort of e-commerce store?
Yeah, so
how do they differ, or do they differ?
With Amazon, you have quite a lot of limitations, I would say, in terms of like the character count that you can use, and the words that you can use can trigger all sorts of things when selling on Amazon. You can get listings taken down. Whereas if you have your own website, you have much more control of what you can put on the page. So, you know, for instance, with Amazon, you have to apply for what's called a brand registry if you want to add the A+ content, which is sort of like enhanced images. It's extra, you know, content that you can add below the main product description, and that is really cool, and I love doing that for clients, where we add it's, I would say it's sort of like a landing page kind of thing, where you have a set of like 5 to 7 image modules, and you can add different text below. So it's very limited because you only have the modules available from Amazon. Whereas if you have your own Shopify store, there are all sorts of plugins that really let you customize the page. You can add video content, you can add different infographics, you know. And a lot of Shopify stores really do stick to the basic layout, where they have, you know, the image on the left-hand side and then a little bit of text on the right-hand side. But there are companies and brands now that are really, instead of just creating a boring product page, they're more turning each product page into a landing page. And just making it sort of like a journey for customers to go on until they hit, you know, add to cart, as opposed to just giving them, oh, here's a little bit of information, and I don't know whether or not you're going to buy it or not, but, you know, really turning a product page into more of a landing page. And then
I think you know, for the listeners, there's so much opportunity. I think what we're saying is, and what you're saying, you know, obviously on Amazon a little bit more limited, but still obviously it's obviously that's a lot of volumes are just sitting right there on the Amazon product pages. But for your stores, you can do so much more, you know, and it's so important to do so much more than just the standard, you know, gone are the days where you can sell a set of products, import your maybe manufacturer product descriptions, and think that you're going to sell product. You know, that's sort of the basic requirements. You know, you think about those product pages, there's so much more to them now, whether that's, you know, the price, the discount price, the reviews element, the upsell, the cross-sell, the related products, the videos, you know, the multiple images, the multiple zoom on the images, you know, options to pay, you know, very clear. You know, gone are the days where you can just show, we take MasterCard and PayPal, which is, you know, 10 years old sort of thinking. There's a lot of different things we can do, but
now a lot of brands are doing, you know, user-generated content as well on their product pages, which I think is brilliant, because it just builds so much trust. You know, when you have pictures from your Instagram feed on there, or even video testimonials from customers throughout sort of the landing page, it just builds like really, you know, a lot of trust.
That's a great one, isn't it? I think the content you can get from product reviews, and whether that's video more so now, seems to be very, you know, a lot of the all of the review companies that we work with, you know, will have obviously that function to then do a video review. That video review can be placed, all that fresh content coming through from your social. If people are using different hashtags, you can obviously highlight those hashtags and pull those through if you've got relevant hashtags to those product pages. Product description, I think it's one of those, as an e-com store owner, I think that, you know, I know there'll be a lot of people listening, you know, that are marketeers, store owners, agency owners as well, you know, where you've got that sort of 50,000 SKUs, 20,000 SKUs, you know, tens and tens of thousands of SKUs. Obviously, it's a big project.
Yeah,
definitely. Do you have any additional sort of tips there around, or maybe frameworks, specifically to share with the audience that will maybe help with that piece?
So I mean, when you're working with thousands of SKUs, I would say that that's definitely it's going to take a while, like to really get everything looking polished and everything like that. And I don't think it's something that people need to freak out about and, you know, overnight fix everything, which is it's just not going to happen. You know, you need to be realistic about stuff. So I mean, in terms of like framework, I have a framework for storytelling, and how brands can really create sort of a narrative that I would like to share. It's not really helpful though for people with thousands of SKUs. I would just say that is going to be a work in progress that, you know, can be done over time. And again, you know, what I see is that brands can still succeed without some of these elements. You know, There are people who sell millions of dollars worth of products and their stuff is garbage, because there's always going to be two types of customers. You're going to have customers that really care about the brand they're buying from, and there's going to be customers who don't give a crap and they'll just buy whatever's cheapest. So it depends what kind of brand you want to be and which kind of customer you want to attract. So that's what I have to say about that. But anyway, this framework that I created, I created it because I was reverse engineering brands and brand narrative and trying to figure out how people could create that for their own companies. And I like to call it the rainforest story layers. And I haven't really put this out online anywhere yet, so your audience is probably going to be one of the first people to hear it. So if you imagine in the rainforest, you have actually different layers. You've got the top layer of the forest, which gets the most sunlight, and that's called the emergence layer. So I like to call that, what brands need to do is that they need to have this big overarching brand promise, and that's the way that they view the world. And that is going to help them kind of stay on the right path and create content that's very consistent with that brand promise. And then in the rainforest, you have what's called the canopy layer. And the canopy layer is apparently in the rainforest, it protects from strong winds and storms and all that kind of stuff. But those are your brand values. That's what I think. And I think that keeps you very strong and consistent, even in the face of competition. Because if you're consistent about your values and you really believe in them, let's say sustainability is important to you, or transparency in how you make your products, or fair trade, whatever it is, stick to those values and don't let anyone else sort of bring you down. And then what you have in the rainforest is it's actually called the understory layer. Now, which is funny that it's called story, but that's what it's called in science. So the understory layer is kind of like an underlying layer of vegetation. And I think that for brands, this should be where your static brand story gets created. So once you have your big overarching brand promise, then you have your values, then you can create your brand story. A lot of brands go straight for this hero story that they want to create with the hero's journey, and they make their customer the center of the story and all the rest of it. Yeah. You know what? When you create a brand story and you put it on your website, I don't know if people really see it. Even if they see it, are they going to even remember it? That I don't know. I don't know how big of an impact it's going to have on your sales. But if it's consistent with your emergence layer, with your narrative and with your values, then it's a good thing to have, but it's sort of a very static piece of content. And then the next layer in my rainforest layers is the forest floor. And on the forest floor, this is like a whole tangled jungle of life, happening. If you went on a journey just now through the Amazon jungle, you're going to be whacking your way through bushes and all the rest of it. So on the forest floor, I think this is where sort of the active storytelling comes into play. And that's where you can, tell stories through email campaigns, on packaging text.
Yeah.
It's where customers are telling stories as well. It's the content they're posting online and talking about your brand. And this sort of layer of your brand story, you might not always have control over what people say about your brand, but you can sort of direct them with your, narrative and with your values and all those things. So that's the way I see, brand storytelling. I see it in layers, and I don't see it as this one static brand story that all of a sudden somehow people are going to believe in. I think it's just definitely something that
I like that a lot. So obviously you've got that overriding, but it's all the different layers. How you're doing different elements of your business, whether that's on the store, how you're interacting on the packaging, the delivery process, the service, that's brilliant.
Right. Thank you. So I hope I'm going to create like a download for people that, maybe you can send out to your audience afterwards, like with the graphics, so that it's more understandable. I think
that'd be great. That'd be great. We'll add it to the episode when it launches. If it's
awesome. Okay.
So what other opportunities do you think brands are missing out on when it comes to storytelling? I mean, obviously you went through a lot there. There's a lot of different things.
Yeah, I did.
Sort of opportunities. So, e-com store owner, marketers listening in right now, what are maybe some actionable things that maybe you've seen consistently that brands are missing out on when it comes to sort of getting that brand storytelling and brand across? What opportunities do you think, they're not doing that, what are things maybe quite actionable where they're going to pause the episode now after you go through this bit and maybe go have a word with the people that are responsible, probably themselves in reality, to go and get some action?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that one of the biggest opportunities that people might be missing out on is the post-purchase phase, where I think people put a lot of effort into the marketing, into getting people onto their websites, getting them to go through the checkout. But then afterwards, that sort of post-purchase phase, following up with customers, and really listening to what they have to say, and also just the actual packaging experience. I feel like having really, really nice content and copy on your packaging, really surprising messages, can really it's exciting for the customer. So for instance, I once bought a pair of shoes, and when I opened the box, inside the box it said, "You can never have too many pairs of shoes." And then it said, "Well heeled since I don't know what year." And I thought it was so cute and so funny, because honestly, you don't want to have buyer's regret. You want people to get the product and then feel like this was a really good decision. And I think you can do these really cute messages and tell stories, not stories with a beginning, middle, and an end, but like tell very, very micro stories, or just messages that embody your brand. And I think that's really cool.
That really resonates during lockdown. I think, like a lot of people, one of the lockdowns, I signed up to quite a few subscription things, and one of them, I bought myself a fancy sort of grinding coffee machine, probably about 18 right at the beginning of lockdown. And
nice.
One of this, and then it's like, right, okay, so we need to sort out the coffee beans to go in it, and signed up to various subscriptions. And the coffee bean brands, or the subscription brands, some of them have really got it down, I thought.
They do.
So I'm subscribing. My first package comes beautifully packaged, and it's quite a low value product. I think it was like £12, £13. Okay. And that was for 2 coffees, so it's like £7 per coffee, a little bit less delivered. So it's really quite low value, but subscription. And each coffee, it's immaculately packed, and it's date stamped that it was ground like yesterday or the day before. So it's uber fresh. And then there's a little card with each coffee talking about the family of growers, or that grower.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, and it talks about the family and the heritage, and and then obviously the specifics of the coffee. So then you become a bit of a coffee nerd, and you've got all the different tones and flavors in the coffee, and then you can adjust your subscription so it's a little bit more maybe chocolatey, or a little bit more, right. And then and I've been a member of that one for probably 18-19 months now.
And told me now, I want to get it.
And it's sort of, it's brilliant. I can think of a few examples. I think it works really well with subscription, because obviously ultimately, and obviously that getting those people to come back to your stores, the guys that are listening, if you want to get people to come back, this sort of brand storytelling is obviously a huge part of it.
Definitely. I think that's a brilliant example that you just gave. That's
really good. So I've got a lot of coffee in the cupboard.
Okay, I'll come round next time I'm in England.
So brand voice then. So I think
this one,
what would you say? People are listening in, I think, and think, well, how do we really get to the nitty gritty of our brand? I think quite often this is the bit that I think people struggle with. What would you say about that?
So what I would say actually is this is kind of not really conventional advice, but when you listen to people talking on the street or on the radio or on YouTube or whatever it is, do you want your brand to sound like that? Do you want your brand to sound like that comedian? Or do you want to sound like the guy that runs the corner shop? How do you want to come across online? And really thinking of it in terms of like a real person can really help brands, I think, nail their voice, because you're not thinking of your brand as this like entity company. You're thinking of it more as a person. So that's one way of doing it. And then another way is really looking at your competitors, because obviously you're going to have people in the market selling similar solutions to what you are, but if they're all really dry and boring, maybe you can be the brand that's funny, and that way you can really stand out. Really just looking at what other people are doing, and then really trying to position yourself differently. You can also like take a sentence and write it in different ways and see if it fits your brand. So I like to do this as like a exercise, but you can write one thing and then try and write it in a funny way, in a very formal way, in a very salesy way, and then see kind of which one you think is good for your brand.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that. So you're saying the same thing ish, but in an edgy way, a funny way, a very professional way, you know, a comedy
or a
way,
flirty way, or
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
whatever you think it might be, whatever suits your brand, whatever it is that you're selling. You know, some brands, I think it's just obvious like what kind of voice they should have sometimes. You know, for instance, if you're like a yoga brand or a brand for, you know, new mothers, you're going to want to have that kind of calming effect on people, and you're not going to be like hyper energetic, you know, voice. Whereas if you're a sports brand, you're going to definitely want to have a more motivational, you know, energetic kind of voice. That's what I think. Yeah,
that's great. So obviously you've worked with a lot of brands. You've written a lot of product description, I'm imagining. We always joke about this in our agency, because I think I don't. If we had a count on it, it would be, you know, we've been doing e-com. Well, I've been doing it for 20-ish years.
Wow.
So I think in terms of product descriptions, I haven't written any for quite some time, that's for sure. But I know as a company, we're writing them every day, you know, every day. So yeah, it's quite an interesting topic for us in the agency. But yeah, so tell us about some brands that you think are doing that storytelling, you know, really well, and they're sort of really embracing it, and you know, it's really helping them and have helped them to grow.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't really give examples from my own clients because I have to protect their privacy, obviously, especially with the Amazon community. Everyone's really like protective of their ideas and their products and everything. But just in general, I was recently shopping. I wasn't shopping, sorry. I was on Pinterest, as women do. And I was looking at my dream kitchen, and then all of a sudden this dress popped up onto my feed. And I wasn't shopping for a dress, but I was really interested because it looked really nice. It was really like my style. I don't know how they know that, but they know. Yeah, and it led me to the Free People website, which is actually, I wasn't really familiar with the brand, but apparently it's owned by Urban Outfitters, which is a really big brand. Anyway, so number one, the brand name intrigued me, Free People, because it's obviously going after free spirited people. And then I clicked on the dress, and the dress itself had a name. It was called Love of My Life Midi Dress. So I love that because it already tells a story. And then it was part of what was called their Endless Summer collection. And I'll just read you what they wrote, like for their product description, which I thought was amazing. It said, whether you live the beach lifestyle year round or dream of making the great escape, the Endless Summer collection is full of our most effortlessly ethereal styles under the sun. And I thought that was brilliant because it's just taking you from where you are, you know, on your couch, you know, doing nothing, to the beach, you know, to that summer vacation that you're like craving. And you think that you can get that. You tell yourself this story that you're going to get that by buying this Love of My Life dress. So I thought that was a brilliant example of storytelling on a website itself. And then just completely different example. This is from a food brand, Dorset Cereals, a very famous UK muesli brand. So they don't just sell you a box of muesli, they're selling you a lifestyle. Actually, they're selling you this very slow paced Dorset lifestyle. And if you go on their blog, they have like this, just all these different pub walks and just different things of selling you this it's not just breakfast, it's way more than that. But on their packaging, they've got this little text, which is something that people might read over breakfast. They've got, so go on, get to know your neighbors, learn to kayak, cook something brilliant, turn off your phone for the day, because when you savor the present, life suddenly becomes far more delicious. So I thought, again, that was a brilliant example of storytelling. It's not a story with a beginning, middle, and end with characters in it. It's a story about the customer eating breakfast. They're telling you, go on, take life slower, turn off your phone. And then you start to like believe in
you're there, aren't you? You're there.
Yeah, you're there.
I actually went there slightly then when you said that.
Yeah, exactly. It just it really triggers that imagination. And I think that's what, there's so much room for creativity, and brands can really do that. Yeah. No,
that's brilliant. That's a couple of brilliant examples, guys. I think really have a think about how you're going to incorporate that into your sort of brand storytelling descriptions. You know, I think both of those examples, you know, I'm thinking summer, I'm thinking, you know, it's funny, we're actually as a family very busy trying to organize various holidays at the moment. We booked a few things last night, and that made me think, because you mentioned, you know, a place that we've been looking at going to, and it's like, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Which is what you're trying to do. You know, you're trying to get them away from just thinking of it as a product. It's taking them to a different place potentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sacha. It's been an absolute blast. It's absolutely flown by. I do like to end every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I do, actually. I have two book recommendations. One of them is the famous Seth Godin, and he has a book called All Marketers Are Liars, but then he has it crossed out and says Tell Stories. So that is a really, really good book, just about brand storytelling in general. And then another book, which is similar, is called The Fortune Cookie Principle. It's by Bernadette Jiwa, I think, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And that is also just another brilliant book full of really, really good examples of brand storytelling. And I've definitely been sort of impacted and learned a lot from those stories.
Brilliant. Well, we'll hook both those up in the show notes. So for the guys that are listening, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and find out more about you, Sacha?
Yeah, so you can look up Sacha Gorelick Copywriting online, or I have another website called eCom Copywriter, and they're going to link to each other. So whichever one is easier to remember for people, but we can also put it into the show notes. LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever is easiest for people to find me, ask me questions, or help them with their brand strategy and brand storytelling. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being a guest on the show. I look forward to catching up